Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch podcast brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap here today with, of course, the Trashman on this eve of I guess it's not the eve of 4th of July weekend. That's tomorrow. I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm headed to the lake tomorrow to celebrate America, Trashman.
I'm celebrating today, I guess.
Yeah, nice shirt, brother. You look terrific. A real patriot.
I love America more than any country in the world, and that for exactly that reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually. That's James. that's James Baldwin, yo.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that everybody agrees. We certainly wish everybody out there a happy 4th of July, and to hope everybody's healthy and happy and safe. And of course, we hope that you are watching on YouTube, Periscope. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you could please give a 5-star rating and review, that would be greatly helpful. We're super excited about all the new listeners and viewers that we're getting these days. Trashman, it might have to do with these shitty topics that are given to us by people that don't even give a shit about football or fantasy football. Literally, topics are given to us by a guy in our company that doesn't know shit about fantasy.
It feels like Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah.
Except for fantasy topics.
It's just crazy. So you chose that today we'll talk about early values. So you've come up with a few early values we'll go over. But before we do that, I wanted to dive into a little bit of wide receiver strength of schedule. You and I talked last time. I'd gotten about halfway through the tool available to our pro members at RosterWatch.com. And we talked about some of the guys with good schedules. I thought today we could talk about some of the players with bad schedules as far as wide receivers. And when we get into that tool, we'll talk about our methodology for how we create it and what goes into the thought process for making it. But first, I wanted to talk about just some of these news and notes. Not really too much going on. There were a couple of things that you mentioned, Trashman. I guess going to Roto World here. There's a blurb about Le'Veon Bell saying that the Athletics' Connor Hughes reports that Le'Veon Bell
working out like a madman.
Yeah, I don't know how much I trust the Athletics' Connor Hughes.
Hey, just the fact that he's working out at all means
that guy's a giant fucking fanboy for the team. That guy ran like Jets blog.
Hey, that means he may not be a Le'Veon Bell fan.
Well, that could be true. Here's what it says on Roto World. It's unclear if Hughes is basing this assertion more on Bell's Instagram stories, but nevertheless, Bell is smarting after a disastrous 2019. Smarting means tilting. He's tilting after a disastrous 2019. It saw him look like a shell of his former self, blah, blah. So they're saying that they don't know whether this is Connor Hughes just basing it on fucking Instagram stories or what else. It's just more, what do you think of this, Trashman? Is it a pseudo event, fake news? What do you think?
Hey, like I said, if there are rumors that Le'Veon Bell is working out, that's good enough for me.
What do you think about Le'Veon Bell if you can get him in the 4th round of your draft, which you can?
I think that's
very
great value.
It really.
I mean, can you imagine saying that 3 years ago?
Well,
2 years ago.
Well, this is a young man's game, Trashman. I mean,
but it's not even really based on the fact that he's a young man. Do you really think he's lost that much of his step?
Yeah. Well, no, but I think that his offensive line's not. I love that the Jets drafted Mekhi Becton. I think that they've done some things along the offensive line, but it's just like you go from Pittsburgh to where he could. Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh developed a signature running style that he sort of needs a killer offensive line to be able to recreate. Do you not agree? That sort of dance behind the line.
I don't necessarily agree. I mean, but he can create his own lanes. He works well in space.
He sure as fuck didn't create any lanes last year. He created a lot of headaches for fantasy.
You could argue that you could argue that he wasn't healthy last year.
You can argue anything. Is that completely true? Was he not healthy? Was he out of shit? Well, no one the fuck, man. It's like we can just make shit up and say you can argue it.
You can argue that
he was having personal problems last season, Trashman.
He didn't look like himself. I know that much.
You can argue that
you have to think in his in his second year in this offense with a quarterback who's got his legs under him, you know, an offensive line that you say has been improved by a modicum.
I'm just saying, you can argue anything if you make up some lie. You don't know if that's true. Like, who knows if he was hurt? It's like saying like I said, it's like saying you can argue he was going through mental health disability last year, or that he was going through a tough time. You can argue he was going through a tough time financially.
Hey, we can argue
we
that.
Don't know.
We can argue that.
Have a hard time selling a house.
There'll be a regression to the mean. He's done amazing every other year that he's been a starting running back in the NFL. So,
Trashman, do you just answer me this? Do you not agree that Le'Veon Bell has a very, very recognizable and signature running style?
Yes.
How would you describe it?
I would describe it, well, it's signatures. I would describe it like Le'Veon Bell. I would decide it like it was magic in motion. But
all right. But what I understand that what the final presentation of is magic in motion, but break it down into pieces behind the line of scrimmage and then into the actual running of the football. Is there anything you kind of notice? It's the patience. It's the way that he dances behind the line. He waits for the lanes to develop. He's just that's how he was successful in Pittsburgh. He created a style. He created a style that was. I mean, you could look at Joe Mixon. You could tell that Joe Mixon's running style has been influenced by Le'Veon Bell. It's very, very, very specific.
And maybe Bell.
I'm not sure it works behind that shitty Jets offensive line.
Listen, maybe he feels a little more comfortable in his second year there behind that line.
I think he's a value too. I think it's because of the touches, and I think it's cockamamie to assert that.
Do you think the offense has improved or regressed? I would say the offense has probably improved.
Why? Because Darnold's a year older and the offensive line has been helped a slight bit. They've lost their best wide receiver in Robbie Anderson,
and they gained maybe their best wide receiver in Denzel Mims.
Oh, that's true. I thought you were going to say Breshad Perriman, and I was going to shoot myself in the head. Okay, so Le'Veon Bell, best shape of his life. Connor Hughes says that he is working out like a madman. That's Connor Hughes, who's been as far as I can tell, a huge Jets fan on Twitter before he ever got a job.
You got to be a Jets fan if you want to write about the Jets.
I'm sure. Deebo Samuel, just a bunch of this news from The Athletic's Matt Barrows, I guess from his recent 49ers mailbag. He considers Trent Taylor to place third on the 49ers in receptions behind George Kittle and Deebo Samuel. That again via The Athletic, via Roto World. I don't know. I mean, are they just does he
know that they drafted Brandon Ayuk?
Yeah, I don't know. But it maybe it does go to show, like, before the injury last year to Trent Taylor, he was a dude that we were considering being interested in, at least as a deep dynasty stash. I'm beginning to think, now with this new news, Deebo Samuel is dealing with a classic Jones fracture. So that looks more like injury. a 10 to 12 week than a 12 to 16 is initially reported. Now that gets us down to a pretty close. Let's see. What is today? We're 4th of July weekend.
I don't think they'll rush Deebo Samuel back. It may be It may be George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Trent Taylor. Either way, Trent Taylor could end up being the number 3.
No, I agree. So could Brandon Ayuk, or Brandon Ayuk could be the number 2.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So Byron and I had this discussion yesterday. Just if I were to ask you at the end of your draft, you could either have N'Keal Harry with Cam Newton throwing him the football now, or you could have Brandon Ayuk. Which one would you take?
N'Keal Harry.
Why?
I think better touchdown equity.
Well, I got bad news for you, Trash Man. He has the second worst schedule of any wide receiver in the top 75 ADP wise. So let's just go ahead and get into that. Let's go ahead and go over those guys. Of course, you can find the cheat sheet at rosterwatch.com along with all of our other tools that we talk about here. I'll just pull up, just so you guys can see the format here of this tool. I'll just pull it up to where you can see some of the guys with the worst schedules. But for everybody listening on the podcast, all I'm doing here is I'm just showing what the wide receiver cornerback visualization tool sort of looks like here. And you can see I've gone through and I projected the corner that will be facing each wide receiver for the projected plurality of his snaps in each of these games, should these guys stay healthy, and cumulative score has been assigned to these guys. The higher the score, the easier the projected cornerback matchup. And you can see as we go down here, the scores get worse and worse, and you start seeing more and more red and pink here along the bottom. And so we're going to talk about the guys here at the very bottom. These are the guys that we project as having the worst matchups from week to week. And we'll go over the top 5 worst matchups or worst cumulative matchups. But before we do that, Trashman, I'll give just the top 3 runners up. So this will be the top 8. You can give me your quick thought on this. Keenan Allen, the 8th worst out of the top 75 as far as wide receiver ADP. Your thoughts on that, especially considering the fact that we rarely ever get slot corners with tough schedules, especially this tough. It's just the Keenan Allen faces a bunch of really tough slot corners and a bunch of really tough slot defenders, most specifically.
It doesn't matter to me.
Why?
Why? I
Keenan
mean,
Allen's
he had a down year last season and still had a great year compared to most wide receivers. I feel like he's a safety blanket for Tyrod Taylor. I feel like that position that he plays in the offense, I don't worry too much about Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen, you say he was okay. Jesus, yeah. I didn't realize he was wide receiver 8 on the season last year.
Yeah, and he had a down season.
No, he did. But 104 catches for 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's nothing to sneeze at. Actually, where was he as far as targets? He was 6th in targets last season. Those targets are going to have to come down, though, right?
Maybe.
You think Tyrod's going to pepper him quite as much?
I mean,
Philip Rivers loves targeting the slot.
I don't think Tyrod Taylor has a worse arm than Philip Rivers at this point in their careers.
Not last year, but Philip Rivers did really love targeting the slot.
And I think
maybe he just loved targeting Keenan
too.
Allen. Could be good news for. Could be good. I heard somebody talking about. As I was going through this, it's something I hadn't thought about before. But as you project Paris Campbell, we project him to play in the slot. Philip Rivers to Paris Campbell. I heard somebody talking about that. I think somebody's talking about that on our friend Matt Kelly's podcast, the Road to Wonder World pod. I wish I could give him credit.
He was my dark horse in his rookie season to lead rookie receivers. It didn't work out injury wise, but there's a lot to like about Paris Campbell.
Paris Campbell falling right in the middle of the pack as far as his slot receiver matchups on the season. He's going to have to face some of these guys he's got some tough ones just in conference. He has to go against.
He's an exceptional athlete, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. He has to go against like DJ Hayden, who's like pretty tough matchup as far as slot corners are concerned. Same with Brian Poole, Buster Screen. But the problem is those guys are nowhere near as fast as Paris Campbell. So, And so, okay. So after Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, super tough schedule, man. Do you worry about him at all? From weeks 9 to week 12 is really where it's the murderer's row. He'll have Byron Jones, Tre'Davious White, either Quentin Dunbar or Shaquille Griffin, and then Stephon Gilmore. And then in your championship weekend, DeAndre Hopkins will surely get Richard Sherman week 16. Your thoughts about that?
I would worry about it more if Hop was more of an outside receiver, but he can play all over the field. And I feel like to the quarterback situation there, I feel like with Kyler Murray, he's gonna improvise more, come out of the pocket more. I feel like there's gonna be more opportunities for both him and Hopkins. I don't really see it being
the sheer number of plays, the sheer volume makes you not that worried about DeAndre Hopkins. With that said, I think that
And Hopkins had a down year in 2019 too.
Yeah, I mean, look, man. They clearly they're going to use him. He's one of the best wide receivers in the league, and we know that they run a high volume plays. Cliff Kingsbury has had a whole another.
He
year
might be the best wide receiver
everything.
in the league when Antonio Brown's not in it.
That's Michael Thomas, but I think DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, you can make
Michael Thomas. Do you think Michael Thomas is as dynamic a player as DeAndre Hopkins?
He just catches. He's the most effective wide receiver in the league. He's one of the most effective wide receivers the league's ever seen.
He's extremely efficient.
Yeah, and effective. And what the fuck else do you want? What else do you want?
All I'm saying, if you needed to get 25 yards out of somebody, I would rather put my money on DeAndre Hopkins and Michael Thomas.
If your aunt had it, you know what? And you know the story. Like it's like we don't always need to. Like, hey, all right. Right outside of the top 5, Henry Ruggs with a brutally tough schedule. If we're going to be considering the number one sort of alpha outside wide receiver for the Oakland Raiders, or the Las Vegas Raiders, which I do. Do you consider him coming in and automatically being the number one and projecting that way as far as the corners that he'll face?
As much as there can be a number one receiver in a Derek Carr-led offense.
All right, fair enough. Here we get into the bottom 5, and we'll just talk about them. Thankfully, the 5th worst schedule here on the board we have for Courtland Sutton. The way that I've said is like, look, Jerry Jeudy's great. I think Jerry Jeudy's going to play out of the slot. I think he's going to play outside, but I think Courtland Sutton's going to play outside, and he's going to, Courtland Sutton actually got shadowed quite a bit last year. I don't know if he'll get shadowed this year as much because teams could be worried about Jerry Jeudy, and they could, we'll have to see how all that works. But certainly, we kind of consider him the number one, or at least the 1A, and Jeudy the 1B, at least to start. And so if we're projecting it like that, we're projecting Jeudy to be mainly on the outside as well. What we do is we either put the better corner on Sutton, or we look and see who's shadowed in the past, or we just look at body types and see who's, because Sutton's a little bit bigger, right? So we go with the bigger guy on Sutton.
I think that's how most people would approach that.
This is just tough for him. He'll face either in week 1, he'll either get Malcolm Butler or Adoree Jackson. It's hard to tell which one. Both those guys are, Adoree Jackson's probably a little bit tougher of a matchup. Then he'll get Joe Hayden with the Steelers, Carlton Davis with the Bucks, who's actually kind of good. Pierre Desir, who kind of not as good. He's with the Jets now, but bigger guy, a little bit easier to body up. The next two gets real tough. Stephon Gilmore, Byron Jones. If he doesn't get Byron Jones, he'll get Xavier Howard, who people are back and forth about there with the Dolphins. But I think probably you get Byron Jones on Courtland Sutton in this situation. He'll get Tre'Davious Ward. Then he'll have his bye week. Then after the bye week, he'll get Isaiah Oliver for the Falcons. That should be a very rare, easy matchup for him. Then after that, Prince Amukamara, Casey Hayward, Marcus Lattimore. He ends his season with Tre'Davious White and then Casey Hayward again. So that's brutal. That's a brutal schedule for Courtland Sutton. I was already worried with KJ Hamler coming in there. I was already worried with Jerry Jeudy coming in there. I was already worried with Albert O coming in there. I was already worried with Noah Fant this season. I was already worried with Melvin Gordon coming in, knowing what he can do as a receiving threat out of the backfield. I mean, I love Courtland Sutton as a prospect. I don't know if I could be taking him in the 4th, 5th round, wherever he's going right now. If it was
he's going to be touchdown dependent.
Yeah. I mean, how interested are you in a touchdown dependent Courtland Sutton? Where you have to take him at current ADP? Whenever you know that this is tough, dude. It's like this is a tough schedule. And Drew Lock's not can we really say that Drew Lock's that? I'm not sure that Drew Lock's that good.
Drew Lock is the biggest question there.
All right. That's like a fucking
who I'm most worried about.
Just like, all right, well, see. We got James Kinney in the comments saying tough schedule, new QB chemistry. Think you need to worry more about DeAndre Hopkins. That's the thing. We usually, on the cheat sheet, wide receivers going to new teams. That's a whole,
DeAndre Hopkins had one of his best seasons ever in a year where he played with TJ Yates, Brandon Whedon, other shithead. It wasn't Osweiler, was it? No,
it wasn't Osweiler.
No.
It was someone bad. It was
TJ. But I think he played with at least 3, maybe 4 quarterbacks that season. One of his best years
Someone
in his entire
will let
career.
us know. I can't believe I can't think of that third quarterback that year.
It's Brandon Weeden, TJ Yates, and I can't think of the third guy.
That's fine. Okay. The fourth worst schedule via the proprietary strength of schedule tool at RosterWatch.com for our pro members. The 2020 wide receiver matchup projection visualization tool available in your download section. Your boy Stefon Diggs, Trashman, a guy that we were already worried about anyway, going from a decent situation to a much worse one in Buffalo.
Is it much worse? That's arguable.
I think it's worse. I mean, on one hand, you get away.
Do you think Josh Allen is a better or worse quarterback than Kirk Cousins
in fantasy? In fantasy,
fantasy
is much better. He runs for 8 touchdowns or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, if the quarterback situation is improving, and Stefon Diggs is
no. The fantasy quarterback situation is improving, which in turn, but via the way that Josh Allen scores his fantasy points, could maybe take points off the table for Stefon Diggs. He'll tuck the ball and run it. He's not going to gun it in there to Stefon Diggs like Kirk Cousins would have.
I would argue that Josh Allen is shaping out to be a better NFL quarterback than Kirk Cousins. So listen, I don't really buy that he's going to be in a much worse situation.
It's going to be a lot worse. And John Brown's there. He'll have Pierre Desir,
Adam Thielen was there.
Jalen Ramsey, Prince Amukamara, Malcolm Butler, Tre'Davious Ward, Stephon Gilmore, Shaquille Griffin, Patrick Peterson, Casey Hayward, Richard Sherman, Joe Hayden, AJ Bouye, Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore in his fantasy championship.
Who do you think gets targeted more, Adam Thielen or John Brown in any offense?
This year? John Brown will get doubled in targets by Adam Thielen this year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and even in the past, I just don't see how there's going to be that. Why you think there's going to be that big of a drop off for Stefon Diggs? Just because Josh Allen likes to run the ball sometimes.
Okay, let's see. Last year, Josh Allen, 461 attempts. Last year, Kirk Cousins, yeah, you're right, 444. So Josh Allen actually attempted more passes last year. We forget that Kirk Cousins, and that's something we need to remember too about Stefanski coming to the James Kinney coming through with it. Tom something or another. It was Tom Savage. Tom Savage. That's who it was. Thank you. You forget Kirk Cousins was low volume last year too. Now,
he's a slow starter.
Will they stay as low volume this year? We're not sure.
It depends if Dalvin Cook is their running back or not.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, you've talked me into maybe not being as down on Stefon Diggs. Still not interested. The third worst schedule. Robert Woods of the Los Angeles Rams. Just when you kind of thought you're getting a discount on Robert Woods, you see his schedule sucks. We kind of talked about him last time, but any extra thoughts today?
I mean, it was the second half of his season last year that he came on. What does it look like this year for him as far as schedule? I mean,
so he doesn't start out easy. He starts all right. Chidobe Awuzie, this borderline. Maybe he's good. Do you think Chidobe Awuzie is good? Cowboys thought he was decent enough to let fucking Byron Jones go. Then he'll get Darius Slay, Tre'Davious White, James Bradbury. He'll get Fabian Moreau, who's a little bit of an easier matchup. After that, he'll get Richard Sherman, Kyle Fuller, Byron Jones, bye week, Quentin Dunbar / Shaquille Griffin, Carlton Davis, Richard Sherman again, Patrick Peterson, Stephon Gilmore, Pierre Desir, then again either Shaquille Griffin or Quentin Dunbar. That's fucking brutal. And those are easy ones to point out because we know that he's going to be outside and we know that Cooper Kupp's going to be in the slot.
I mean, I guess it too kind of depends on if Josh Reynolds can handle the other side of the field. And you just cannot give up on Josh Reynolds, can you? You just can't quit the guy. There's no reason to quit him yet.
He was
breakout.
We're getting a question here from Juarez, your problem for Orange Bloods. What was I saying? This is tilting me about Anthony Miller. What was I saying before I got thrown off by my Anthony Miller question here?
You were talking about Josh Reynolds.
He was a better college producer than Mike Evans. Isn't that just so hard to believe? That's crazy. He's more prolific college producer. Okay, Alex, you were super high on Anthony Miller a couple years ago. What happened? Trubisky, yes, and fucking Matt Nagy, a clown show offense. Just the squirt gun. I mean, this thing is a clown shoes. It is. What is Byron called? He calls it just the most cockamamie, back-ass version of the great gimmicky version of the greatest show on turf anybody's ever seen. Till Matt Nagy gets out of there, I don't know really what to say about it. With that being said, as long as we're talking about these wide receiver cornerback matchups, Anthony Miller, now that you ask Juarez, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the sixth best schedule for the opposing corners he'll face. He runs 77.5% of his snaps out of the slot.
If Nick Foles is the
Chicago
quarterback,
slot receivers, add in Nick
big
Foles,
year for Anthony Miller.
Receiver. So yeah, I don't hate Anthony Miller, and we're getting him. If you use the cheat sheet for the PPR leagues, you're going to get him. And I have not given up on Anthony Miller. I'm not going to give up on Anthony Miller. I feel about Anthony Miller like Trashman feels about Josh Reynolds. Okay, second to worst, N'Keal Harry. We already talked about him, but this thing's brutal. It's brutal at the start. It's brutal at the finish. He only really has 2 easy matchups in Week 9 versus Pierre Desir, and Week 11 when what we could project is probably Gary and Conley. With the Houston Texans, he could get Bradley Roby there. Other than that, it's a fucking murderer's row. The worst schedule in all of fantasy for wide receivers. Breshad Perriman, New York Jet.
That's why you play the bass.
I should ask you for the drum roll. Trashman. What do you think about Breshad Perriman before we get into your value picks here?
Do you still think he's the athletic specimen that he once was? I feel like Denzel Mims is the guy I'm excited about in that wide receiver core. As soon as he was drafted,
Denzel Mims, the 10th best schedule of anybody. Because
that's what I'm excited about for the Jets offense.
I think Breshad Perriman is going to is going to at least start out getting the number 1 corner, right? Denzel Mims will get the number 2 outside corner, and at least we can project it like that. He's not even on every snap, but maybe not even the majority. But this is about the plurality of snaps. This is about the opportunity to make plays, right? And so we know Jamison Crowder is going to get the slot corner, right? Or the Tyrann Mathieu or whoever, if it's not a corner, whoever's handling the slot. And Denzel Mims is going to get the number 2. And do you know what that means? It means that in the times whenever, let's say, Breshad Perriman is going to get Tre'Davious White twice, that means Denzel Mims is going to get Josh Norman twice, who sucks now, right? Like, he's going to get Josh Norman twice.
My heaven, the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, I mean, he gets unproven guys like he's going to get, whenever Breshad Perriman is on Richard Sherman, Denzel Mims is going to be on Emmanuel Mosley, right? Whenever Patrick Peterson is on Breshad Perriman, Denzel Mims probably going to be on Robert Alford. Maybe he would be on maybe Byron Murphy would be on him, but it would seem like since Byron Murphy plays on the slot, Byron Murphy would move inside to get on to Jamison Crowder, especially at the beginning of the season. So so he'll get Robert Alford. That's another super easy matchup. He'll get whenever Breshad Perriman's. Do you know what? Breshad Perriman might not be faster than Denzel Mims. I keep forgetting that Denzel Mims ran sub 4.4. Breshad Perriman, though, you forget at the UCF Pro Day ran sub 4.3, which I don't know if we can always go by, but maybe Denzel Mims sees Byron Jones when they play Miami, but I think he'll see Xavier Howard, which is the easier matchup. These are just, I mean, whenever they play Cleveland in week 16, whenever the Jets play Cleveland in week 16. Breshad Perriman. We'll see Denzel Ward. While Denzel Mims will see Greedy. It's one of those that just fell. Like the Jets are if by the end of the season the script flips to where people are like, shit, man, we need to start putting our good guy on Denzel Mims, then Denzel Mims will have a hard schedule. But it looks like, at least from the very start, it's going to be Breshad Perriman there with the shit end of the stick. Trashman, what you've been dying to talk about, you've been texting me all week. I don't even understand what this fucking topic is.
Champing at the bit. I think I do, maybe.
The topic is early values.
Early values. So I took this as players who you're going to get early in the drafts, but are going to still be able to provide value for you.
Who are they?
And so the first of these is Kenny Golladay. It's wide receiver 7 right now.
You're just all in, man. I think that his
led wide receivers in touchdowns last season with Matt Stafford only playing half the games. I mean, over 1,100 yards. I just think with Matt Stafford playing a full season, I think Kenny Golladay could be a top 3 wide receiver.
And no love at all for Marvin Jones.
I mean, there's some love there, but Kenny Golladay is the man there.
I'm not sure that that's the case. I mean, opposing teams don't always see that. I mean, I can get Marvin Jones at wide receiver 37. I have to spend, what did you say? I mean, his ADP, I'm not getting him very much, so I don't know the exact. It's like, what is it, 9, 8? Like, what is his ADP right now? Set. It's like Trashman. All the value's baked into it. He's wide receiver 8 right now. He almost
if you get a top 3, maybe number 1 wide receiver out of it, I'd say that's value.
I'll give you 5-1 odds that there's absolutely no. I'll give you 5-1 odds that he's not wide receiver 1 in PPR next year.
Okay.
Do you want to take the deal? Okay.
Sure.
I'll write that down. What, like for 3 Jimmy John sandwiches? So I owe you 15 Jimmy John sandwiches.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So what did we say? 5-1. Golladay is wide receiver is the wide receiver 1, not a wide receiver 1, but the wide receiver 1 in PPR. Okay. I'm chalking up those Jimmy John sandwiches.
Half point PPR.
We said, all right, fine. I'll do half point PPR. So I'm just adding to my little crib sheet here. All right. Your next one.
Kenyan Drake.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. It's like fucking, this should just be called the Kenyan Drake. The Trashman Talks About Kenyan Drake podcast.
Well, it's true. Can you dispute it?
It is true. No, he's an excellent value. You can argue to taking, there's an argument to taking Kenyan Drake like number 6 overall in PPR. There's a legit argument to it.
Its ADP is 24 right now. He's running back 11.
Is that his ADP? That's unbelievable. It's got to be a little higher than that, doesn't it? Let's see. Kenyan Drake. His ADP is not 24. Oh, it's standard? You're looking – okay. His ADP is 13 in PPR. Running back 8. So a little bit more valuable in PPR there, trash man. But I still think he's great value, right? He's great value.
Yes. Excellent value.
Michael Yeager's asking, oh, God, if we switch back to Jimmy John's from – oh, shit. I'm sorry, man. No. I'm just so used to using Jimmy John sandwiches, but yes, no. We did officially switch to Jersey Mike's a while back. Those Jimmy John's kids,
they had to start sponsoring
those Jimmy John's kids are just too jerky, too jerky.
Woolly.
What do you know what the fucking thing is, trash man? Is that they do this jerky thing where if you order one of the slims, like you just want a slim, they won't just put mayonnaise or mustard on there for you. They make you take a packet of it.
Give you the packet.
Which is more fucking expensive for the company.
Hey, do you want them touching your sandwiches? Do you want them touching your sandwiches more?
Never have, never will. Like I said, trash man. I was a man ahead of my time, slathering all this hand sanitizer on and worrying about people's germs. All right. You got any others?
All right, after him, Austin Ekeler.
He's not safe.
Hey, he was the 4th highest scoring running back in PPR in 2019.
He's not safe. You don't worry at all about Joshua Kelley? What a goat he is.
No.
What about
I didn't worry about – did you worry about Melvin Gordon with Austin Ekeler last season?
Yeah, I did.
And Ekeler still came in as the fourth highest scoring running back in PPR formats? And you think Joshua Kelley's better than Melvin Gordon?
Hey, do you know what, Trashman? That's such a strong take. I think we just end it there. Let's just end it there. I gotta get out. I gotta get this striper rig set. Check out this fucking striper rig. Let me go grab it. I got this Trashman. You can tell me. You tell me what you think. What they're gonna bite on. So I'm going to probably go trolling at like 2.5 miles an hour. So like, got this. These are all crankbaits. Tell me which one you think they're going to like best. So there's this color. This color. I got this guy with a little spinner on there.
That one.
I think I kind of like that. And listen to it. And then couple of these other ones, there's just some little skirts to put on.
Yeah.
But look I figured this would be Trashman's favorite.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
Just a regular old kind of green one. So that's what we'll be doing, getting these striper rigs set up, man. If I get a big one, I'll make sure and take a photo and we'll show you guys on the next stream. But yeah, so that's
back?
A striped bass.
Oh, what are you saying? You throw them all back? Everything you catch out there.
Fuck no. Okay. I'm not going to throw back a striped bass. So, like, I'm not going to throw back a crappie. I'll throw back a largemouth bass. If I catch a big catfish or striped bass, dude, that thing's coming home in fillets.
Catfish, no.
What? Catfish is delicious when you catch it yourself, trash man.
It's a garbage fish.
Surprised a bottom feeder like you wouldn't like it anymore.
How the hell is Trashman? What do you mean?
Oilers.
How the hell am I wearing that Oilers, baby?
Better than that.
Southeast Texas.
Better than that junk you were wearing last time.
Born and bred.
Okay, so if you guys watch it on YouTube, man, thanks for sticking around this long. If you guys could please give us a thumbs up there, comment, like, subscribe, rate, review, all that shit, man. We would really, really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody. Love you guys. Have a happy 4th of July, man. I'm Alex for the Trashman.